Okay, we'll start. Good morning, everybody. We'll start with the attendance. Uh, what we will do is the way you give your attendance in the class in a sequence, one by one, you can unmute and you say your roll number. Okay, start with roll number one.
Present, sir.
Next, two, three,
Roll number 4, present, sir.
okay, five, continue, six,
Roll number 7 present, sir.
next,
8 present, sir.
next,
9 present, sir.
10 present, sir.
11 present, sir.
12,
13 present, sir.
14 present, sir.
15, 16, 17,
18 present, sir.
19 present, sir.
20 present, sir.
21,
22,
23, 24, 25,
26 present, sir.
27,
27,
next,
28,
29,
okay, next,
30,
31,
32, 33, 34, 35,
36 present.
Sir, roll
30,
number 34 present, sir.
37,
38,
38,
39,
40 present, sir.
41,
42,
42,
43,
44, 45,
44 present, sir.
46, 47, 48, 49, 50,
51 present, sir.
52, 53, 54, 55,
56 present.
7, 58,
59,
60,
61,
62, 63, 64,
Present, sir.
next 65,
65. Yes, sir.
66,
57,
68, next 69, 70, 71, anybody is missed?
37, sir.
37, Okay,
Sir, 17 present.
1 second, hold on, please. Okay, go in the order. Who is present? Any missing numbers?
17, sir.
17.
Sir, 32.
30. Yes, anybody else?
37.
37. Yes, anybody else? Okay, all right. I have 40. Okay, if anybody is missing, not given attendance, put it in the chat. I will put at the end. Okay, put your roll numbers in the chat section. I will put it at the
So 47.
47. Okay. Okay. In the last class, we looked into routers and the routing table, how the request is routed to the from the sender to the receiver. Okay, and
Sir,
domain names.
roll number 3.
Okay, you can put it in the chat. I will put it later. Okay, don't interrupt. Put it your roll number in the chat section, and I will give the attendance at the end. Okay, domain name server or domain name system. What is DNS? Put your answer in the chat session. Why do we need a domain name server? DNS. Name for IP address. Very good, Rahul. So it is nothing but a name for instead of we know that in the network all the devices will be having a unique identity, that is IP address. Okay, uh, every device will have a one unique number, that is a IP address. But identifying by the IP number would be very difficult, and it is not a good way of representing. So we have something called as a domain name. If for every IP address, we can give a name, which is like a English-like structure, and domain name server will resolve that name. So it will have a that domain name, and it will have a mapping to that particular IP address. Whenever you are requesting something like this URL, which is www.funwebdev.com. So this is the very easy name to remember. Google.com, right? It's very easy to remember. Facebook. Those are the names are very easy to remember. When this particular request is sent from the browser, it will go to the DNS server, okay, domain name server, and whatever is the mapping IP address, that will be returned back, and then with that particular IP address, the request is sent to the web server. Okay, and you can see here it gets back this particular IP address. Again, request is sent to this particular web server with this IP address, and it will receive the response back. This is how it will work. So that is the use of the domain name server or the domain name system. So domain levels, there are different domain levels when we are giving the it in the URL. First one, the last entity .com. It is a top level domain, or also it is called as a TLD. You can have .com. Com is nothing but a company. .org, organization. .in, right? So we have different TLDs that we can use. Next one is the a second level domain name, whatever the actual name you want to give. In this case, it is a fun web dev. That is the name of the particular website or the web application. That will go as a second level domain. And www is World Wide Web would be the third level domain, and the fourth level domain is the server. What are the different URL components? In order to allow clients to request a particular resource from a server, a naming mechanism is required so that the client knows how to ask the server for the file. So we have a unique naming system for the URL. If you make the request in that particular order, whatever the requested resources will be provided to the client. So here is the naming system. So you can see here, this is the domain. Okay, so it starts with a protocol, which protocol we are using, HTTP or HTTPS. Then comes the domain. This is the domain. Then this is the path where we are trying to find the a particular file. In this case, it is index.php, and query string. We will see what is query string. So after the question mark, we have page is equal to 17. That is the query string and the fragment. This is how the structure of the URL component. Query string. So why do we use query string? Query string are the ways to pass information from the client to the server. Query strings will be covered in depth when we learn about HTML forms and server-side programming. Here we will get a very brief idea. When you are requesting the URLs, the web applications, you might have seen something like this, right? Some name would be there, is equal to some value would be there. So that is a query string. They are the way of passing information, such as user form input from client to the server. So it is the way of passing information, as I told before. In URLs, they are encoded as a key value pair. Okay, so always it would be a key value pair. So you can have as many as key value, means you will have a key. Key is a unique a name, and value is the what value you are giving for that particular key. So it's a key value pair, delimited by ampersand. Means if you have more than one key, your key value pair you are passing, then it is delimited by ampersand, separated by ampersand, and it is preceded by the question mark symbol. So it will start from the question mark symbol. This is the example. We have two keys here. One is called as a username, and second one is the password, and these two keys have a value. So key is equal to username is equal to John. So this will be taken as the a value for this particular key, and this particular ABCDEFG value is taken for the password. These two are called as the values, and this ampersand and these are question mark is the delimiters. Next one is the HTTP. So hypertext transfer protocol is HTTP. We know this HTTP, which layer this belongs to. HTTP, we broadly saw the 4 layers. Which layer does HTTP belong to? Please answer in the chat session. What are the different layers we looked into? HTTP, which layer it belongs to? Okay, link layer, that is the bottommost layer, Alpha, not data link. HTTP, which layer it belongs to? And we, I also told when we were discussing about those layers, we are only dealing with the top layer, which is useful for the web application development. If you recall, this is the top layer. Which was the top layer? Not the transport layer. Service. Okay, very good. Ravi and Alphan, it's an application layer. Correct. So this is the application layer, and what HTTP does is it establishes a TCP connection on port 80. So what is a TCP? It is a transmission control protocol. HTTP establishes a connection to TCP on port 80. Port 80 is by default. If you don't specify the port, then it will make a default connection to the port 80. The server waits for the request and then responds with the response code, headers, and optional messages which can include files. So we make a HTTP request that goes to the server, and we get the response. We will see the structure of the request and response later. At this time, just understand that we send a request, HTTP request, and we get a response, and a response will include many information like a header. There would be header and optional message which might include a file, images, and other types of a data. Web request. While we as a web users might be tempted to think of an entire page being returned in a single HTTP response, this is not the fact. In fact, what happens? So what it says is, like, when you are requesting a certain page, you get a feeling that everything is received on a single request. It will not be like that. There will be multiple requests and responses, and when the browser gets all the information on the on its side for whatever request it has sent, then it will assemble all those things and it will show. It is not a just a single request and you get the whole page. Okay, so that is what is mentioned here. In reality, the experience of seeing a single web page is facilitated by the client's browser, which requests the initial HTML page and then parses the returned HTML to find all the resources referenced from within it, like images, style sheets, and scripts. So there will be multiple requests and it will assemble it back and it will show as a single HTML. Only when all files have been received is the page fully loaded for the user. Browser parsing. So browser parsing, first is like we have the request that will go. So in this there are two types of request, get and post. We will see what is get and post. So it will say first one is the get. We are requesting vacation.html, and the web server, it returns the response as a vacation.html. So here we are requesting for this particular HTML page, and it gets back that particular HTML page. For each resource referenced in the HTML, the browser makes additional requests. So on this particular HTML, there are many resources, okay, reference. For all those references, a browser makes additional requests. For example, after getting the HTML, it looks in, it parses that, and it will see there are some references. For example, one is the style sheet, CSS. Then it will say styles.css. So that is a reference over on the HTML. It will make that particular request to the server again. It requests for the style sheet, and it gets the CSS file. Okay, and maybe there is a one image on that particular reference to the image. Again, it will request the server for that particular image. So picture.jpg, it will request and it will get the response as the image. Now if you see, even though you are seeing it as a single page on your side, vacation.html, that particular HTML has a reference to CSS as well as a reference to some images. The browser will make additional request and get those resources. For example, it got the CSS, it got the JPG, and it will put all the things together, and then it will display it on the browser as a single HTML page. When all browsers have arrived, all resources have arrived, the browser can layout and display the page to the user. That is how the multiple requests are made, and it is displayed as a single HTML page after you get all the resources. Okay, these are the methods we talked about, HTTP request methods. We'll get into detail more later. This is like we are going through all the web related terminologies, concept as an introduction. So you will get just a whole 9 yards. You will understand the whole picture, may not be in detail. As we go through each of these modules, these things will make more sense you later. The HTTP protocol defines several different types of requests. So HTTP can make different types of request, and each with a different intent and characteristics. The most common request that you must have already heard is a get and post. Okay. Along with the head request. So there is a request for the header that we can call from the HTTP. Other requests such as put, delete, connect, trace options are seldom used and are not covered here. So these are the other types of requests you should be aware. We might see this in, these are not used frequently. The most frequently used HTTP requests are get, post, and sometimes the head request. Okay, get versus post request. You can see this is particular request is a post and this is a get. You can see here we have a form here and the method is post. The action is we have the PHP file. So method is equal to post and action is equal to form process.php. That is the file. So it will, the request will go like this, post, and it will request for this particular PHP file. And in this case, it goes as a link. It's a get request. So you can say this is a one HTML element or the tag we will see today, which is used for referencing the particular resources on the server. So it goes as a reference. It is referring to this particular PHP, and this hyperlink is the text. Okay, when you click on that, it makes a reference to this particular file on the server. So that will go as a get request. Okay, in summary for whatever we have discussed, a web server. What is a web server? At a fundamental level, it is nothing more than a computer that responds to HTTP requests. So what is a web server? Web server is a software installed on a server, okay, which is like a relatively better configured hardware. We call it as a server. What it does is it responds. It takes requests from the HTTP and it responds. That is the job of a web server. Regardless of the physical characteristics of the server, one must choose an application stack to run a website. So we will have a application stack that we have seen to run any kind of a web application. And the stack will include operating system will be there, web server software will be there, and database and scripting language to process dynamic requests. So this is a general talk. Okay, this stack is here it is a very general. Minimally we will have some kind of operating system, and minimally we will have a web server. A database, it depends on your application whether you need a database or not. So generally that stack will be dependent on what kind of web application you are building, what is your requirement. Okay. This particular book, what we talked about, which book we are referring, they use the LAMP software stack, okay, which refers to Linux operating system, Apache web server, MySQL database, and PHP scripting language. So similar to LAMP, we have a XAMPP. Okay, if you are in touch with your seniors, many of them have developed their projects on the XAMPP. So XAMPP is nothing but here it is a LAMP, XAMPP X. Can you guess what is the X is for? So what I said is a XAMPP server. The X could be, any guesses? L is for Linux, X is for? Okay, XAMPP is the same stack, application stack for the Windows operating system. So I told you when like if you want to do the application development, when we go on the server side, we can start installing XAMPP. As of now, for the client, we don't need really anything. We already have a browser on our system, laptop, and Notepad is enough to write code on the HTML side. Okay. Now, this is all a brief introduction to the web application development, the history to what all the things that are required. And with that understanding, we will begin with the brief history about the HTML and the HTML tags. HTML tags are also called as HTML elements. So tags and elements both are same. Before we start with the HTML tags, there every language that is being developed initially, it goes through a certain cycle where many people are developing in that. There are no standards followed. Okay, so we need a standards. Okay, when we say ANSI C, okay, all of you must have heard ANSI C. What is ANSI? What is ANSI? ANSI? Put your answer on the chat session. What is ANSI? Or you can speak up, unmute, and you can speak. Am I audible, right? Okay, all right. So what is ANSI? Okay, American, that is correct, Sahil. Sahil and Alfan. American National Standards Institute. Okay, C. So why did they come up with the ANSI? What was the reason for the ANSI? You can unmute and speak. What is the, why do we need standards like that? Why was ANSI created? Okay, no idea. Okay, ANSI, like we need standards. When there were initially when C programming was developed, there were multiple companies or the vendors. They started working on building their own flavor of C programming, right? You must have heard about Turbo C and other flavors of C, where there is a we have multiple compilers which will compile it. So they wanted to have certain standards in when they are building. Suppose how a structure is built, or how what would be the size of the integer. So for everything they will create a standard. So when they create a such standard, when whatever flavor of C program that will come out is compatible for that particular standards. Okay, so standards are very essential so that we can put everything in a one set of rules, one set of a box. You can refer to ANSI if any particular developer of a C program particular software is in compliant with that ANSI standards. So standards are very important when we are dealing with many developers who are coming up with that particular software. Similarly, HTML also we have a standards. Okay. Okay. Similarly, for HTML, we have standards that is created by the W3C. Okay. What is W3C is World Wide Web Consortium. So that is a World Wide Web Consortium that they defined the the specification for the HTML tags or the HTML elements. So like we talked about the first network that was started around 1960, ARPANET, and then you can see in 1991, Tim Berners-Lee, he started with a first set of specification for the HTML, and in 1997 this W3C was formed, that consortium was formed, and they started making the specification for the HTML. What is HTML? HTML is defined as a markup language. Markup language is simply a way of annotating. What is annotate? Annotate is like putting some kind of a label or a notes, like what that content is for. Okay, that is called an annotation. Most of the time, like you have notes, on top of that you will have some marking with let's say green color, green circle. Okay, so where you want to highlight that particular content, so that is called annotation. Okay, or annotate. So markup language, what is HTML? It is a way to annotate or annotating a document in such a way to make the annotations distinct from the text being annotated. So the main reason for this is, like, whatever the content we have, we want to annotate it. So that is the reason why we use the markup language. Okay, the terms come from the days of print. So when we had the actual print, you take the printout and you make a lot of annotations on that. So the term has come with that. So I have this copy. So this is you can see here a lot of annotations are there. So this is the basic reason why we have the HTML. Okay. So at the simplest, markup is a way to indicate information about the content. So you are indicating the information about what the content is. Okay. The information about the content in HTML is implemented via tags. Okay. HTML tag. So information about the content. So this is a very important term. We are putting some kind of a notes on top of the content, right? That is the annotation. That is the information about the content. So you are you saw the previous, you are putting some kind of a things. Okay, second heading, right? You are saying this is second heading, this is first heading. You are putting some kind of a information about the content. What is the information here? This is the a main heading. That is the information about this content. So that is exactly what markup language HTML do, and how it is implemented using the tags. We call it as a HTML tags or HTML elements. The markup in the previous slide consists of the red text, various circles, arrows, okay, on one page, and little yellow sticky notes on the other. So those are the different markups that are done on the previous. So here you can see some circles are there, arrows are there, right? Okay. Some information is there, information about the content. Okay, this is the different type of markup that is done on this particular pages. HTML does the same thing, but uses textual tags. So we have all the tags are textual. We will have some kind of a text in creating those tags. W3C is the main standards organization for World Wide Web. How HTML tag should be created, how it should be, how it should start, how it should end, what are the different rules, uppercase, lowercase. All those standards are done by the W3C. Okay. To promote compatibility of W3C, produces recommendations, also called specification. So W3C, they keep on coming with a recommendation. In 98, W3C turned its attention to a new specified specification called HTML 1.0, which was a version of HTML that used stricter XML. XML is extensible markup language syntax rule. So in 1998, because until then, the HTML standards were not strict. Means if there is any, let's say there is an opening tag, but there is not a closing tag. That is one of the rule which says if there is a opening HTML tag, there should be a corresponding closing HTML tag. Even if there is no closing HTML tag, some of the browsers they used to handle. So we had a different kinds of browsers. We have Chrome, IE, Mozilla. Different browsers will handle it differently. So the look and feel could be different. Okay. Because these standards are not strictly maintained by all the browsers. This particular, when W3C came up with a XHTML 1.0, they made it as a very stricter. If there is any error, it will not parse. Okay, so that is how it was created. The goal of XHTML with its strict rules was to make page rendering more predictable by forcing web authors to create web pages without syntax errors. So that was the reason why that stricter rules were employed, so that we have uniform page rendering by different web authors. That was the main reason for making those rules strict. Means what? If you don't follow that standard, it will not render that page. It will give error. Earlier version, it was rules were not strictly implemented. Even if there is any missing thing, it will depend on particular web author or the browser how that will be showed on the page. So uniformity will not be there. So how it will show it on the browser, it was unpredictable. XML-based syntax rules for XHTML are pretty easy to follow. The main rules are, so what were the XHTML rules? Some of the main rules are lowercase tag names. So all the tag names should be in the lowercase. That is one of the rule. Attributes always within quotes. So whatever attributes you are using, it should be inside the quotes, and all elements must have a closing element or be self-closing. So as I said, all the HTML tags should will have an opening tag, and there should be a closing tag as well. That is one of the rules. Okay, to help with the web authors, two versions of the XHTML were created. So because it was made strict, many websites which were already built with the earlier standards, they will now fail to load, because it is if they follow the XHTML 1.0, which is very strict. So to avoid that problem, to help the web authors, what the W3C did was it came up with two versions. One is XHTML 1.0 strict, and another one is XHTML 1.0 transitional. So the strict version made sure that the rules are followed strictly. It is in compliant. However, XHTML gives some relaxation. Okay, even if you have not followed certain things, there were options were given how you can define what is not complied in your particular application. So this gave a meaning like these particular web application which are in XHTML 1.0 transitional will eventually move to the 1.0 strict version. Okay, that was the reason why there were two versions. The strict version was meant to be rendered by a browser using a strict syntax rules and a tag supported described by the W3C XHTML 1.0 strict specification. And the transitional recommendation is more forgiving flavor of XHTML. So it is like not followed very strictly. It was very forgiving and was meant to act as a temporary transition to the eventual global adoption of XHTML script. So this was given an opportunity where they can transition from, so if they need certain amount of time, they can take that time, and from this transitional version, they can move to the stricter version, which will become the global standard for the all the HTML. Okay. And during 2000, the focus in the professional web development community was on standards, that is on limiting oneself to the W3C specification for XHTML. So there was a different thought because it is becoming stricter. There were a lot of web applications that were developed that were failing, and transitioning it to stricter, it will take more time and effort. So there were different thought process, and there was okay, this is the validator. If you want to validate your application, web application, whether it is a compliant or not, you can go to the W3C markup validation service, and you can put in your URL, and you can identify whether it is compliant or not. So I will show that example. I have already loaded that page, not this. Okay, here. So this is the validator.w3.org, where you can validate a particular application is in compliant with XHTML 1.0. So you can just type your URL here, and after typing the URL, you can say check. Okay. Now you can see here, this document was successfully checked as a XHTML 1.0 strict. So you will get, so just I use this one, www.w3.org, okay, just for the test purpose. So it says that this particular web application or the website is checked as XHTML 1.0 strict. So it complies. So whichever application you want to check, you can give that URL, and you can check whether it is XHTML strict or transitional. All those information can be accessed using this validator. Okay, we already saw that example. So this is the one where I loaded the page. Now, next one was I told you there was a lot of issue with following a 1.0 stricter. Then in around 2000s, there was a XHTML 2.0 proposed, a revolutionary and substantial change to the HTML. Okay, it provided backwards compatibility with HTML, and HTML 1.0 was dropped. Okay, so when they came up with the XHTML 2.0, what they did was the backward compatibility was removed for even XHTML as well as HTML 1.0. Browsers would become significantly less forgiving of invalid markup. Now, so XHTML 2.0, it followed the stricter version, and it also stopped the backward compatibility for HTML as well as XHTML 1.0. Now all the web application, they have to move towards this, which involves the stricter implementation of the rules. So this created a problem. That is when a group, okay, web hypertext application technology working group within the W3C, they started working on some other standard. Okay, this group was not convinced that W3C's embrace of XML and its abandonment of backward compatibility was the best way forward for the web. So this group, this WHATWG, this group thought there should be a backward compatibility. Abandoning backward compatibility is not a good way to get into the future web. There should be always backward compatibility. So they started working on their own version. In 2009, they worked for around 7 or 8 years parallel to the W3C, and in 2009, W3C stopped the work on XHTML 2.0. Okay, so W3C realized this stricter version and not giving the backward compatibility is not a good idea for future. So instead, what they did was they adopted work done by the WHATWG group, whatever the work done by this particular group, which the group which wanted the backward compatibility, whatever the work done was done by that particular group was adopted by W3C. And they named it as HTML5. I'm sure that all of you heard the HTML5. So HTML5 is a new standards. Okay, what the HTML main thing about the HTML5? Specify unambiguously how browsers should deal with invalid markup. So here it gives an option. Suppose certain markups are invalid, the browser can specify unambiguously, means without ambiguity, how it should be handled. So that should be specified. And provide an open non-proprietary programming framework via JavaScript for creating a rich web application. So HTML5, it will provide an open and non-proprietary. Non-proprietary means what? Nobody will own it. Okay, it is not property of any particular organization or any individual. That is a non-proprietary programming framework. So via JavaScript for creating rich web application, and be backwards compatible with the existing web. So whatever has been developed so far, this HTML5 will be backward compatible. This is the main thing about the HTML5. While parts of the HTML file are still being finalized, all of the major browsers manufacturers have at least partially embraced HTML5. So many browser manufacturers, they have partially embraced the HTML5. Certainly not all browsers and all versions support every features of HTML5. And you know, there are different versions for the browser itself. If certain versions of the browser may not support HTML5, okay, some applications still, if it is running on older browsers, it will not support the HTML5, but it is backward compatible. This is in fact by design. HTML is a HTML5 is now a living language. That is what it is changing. It is evolving over a time. So every browser will support gradually increasing subset of HTML5 capabilities. So henceforth, every browser, at least partially, it will support the HTML5 capabilities. Now, this is the how the support for the HTML5. If you see, like almost 3/4 of the browsers, they support the full HTML5 support. Means they completely 100% comply with the HTML5 specification. And you can say about less than a quarter they partially support, and there is a very small chunk of browsers which does not support the HTML5. Okay, next we will start with the HTML tags and or HTML elements, the basics. We'll start with a few of the tags, and we will also do the coding. So we have only 5 minutes left. So we'll just go through this, and the coding part we will take up in the next class, where we will develop our first HTML page. HTML documents. What are HTML documents? Are composed of textual content and HTML elements. So what you see is the HTML document. You will see textual content. So there could be images and all those things. Predominantly, it is textual content and HTML elements. It combination of this is the content and this is the annotation. The HTML element can contain text, other elements, or be empty. Okay, HTML element or a tag, it can contain text, or it can contain other HTML element inside it, excuse me, or it can be just empty. It is identified in the HTML document by tags. Okay, HTML elements can also contain attributes. Means HTML elements might have more attributes. When we say attribute, for example, there is a text element or a text tag. It has a attributes. What are the different type of attributes it can have? Size, font, color, things like that. Those are the different attributes it can have. An HTML attribute is a name value pair. Okay, I give an example of a like a size for a font size. So font size is the name. It's always a key value pair. Key is font size, and the value could be 20, 24, whatever the size. If you say font color, the different values of the color, red, blue, green, whatever. So HTML attribute is a name value pair. It's always a key value or a name value pair that provides more information about the HTML element. In a XHTML attribute, values had to be enclosed in quotes. In HTML5, the quotes are optional. So in earlier version of the XHTML, attribute value should be always enclosed in a quote, single quotes. But in case of HTML, it is optional. If you want, you can put the quotes, or you can leave the value as is. Okay, these are the different examples of the HTML. One of the HTML tag or the element is img. Okay, so it will have the angle bracket. Within the angle bracket, always HTML tags will be in the angle brackets. So you can say it is a less than, greater than. Those are the angle brackets. This is open angle bracket. This is closing angle bracket. And the different tags, as we know, it would be in the lowercase. HTML5 standard, it will be in the lowercase, most of the things. So image. So what this particular tag it will do is it will insert an image into HTML document. And this A, okay, A inside the angle bracket, this HTML element or a tag, it creates a link. It creates a link for anything. So earlier you saw the example in case of a get, we tried to get the resource, some file, PHP file we try to create. There we use this tag, a tag, and we can create list. So you have list of things you want to show on the HTML document. You can do that. UL is unordered list, OL is ordered list, and LI is the list items. Suppose engineering branches. So you have 5 engineering branches. Okay. So the list item LI is computer science, then electrical engineering, and so on. That is the list items LI. We can create a different headings. Okay. In the earlier document, we saw like there was an annotation saying the first heading. So we can use the tag H1, H2, H3, so on. There are different tags we can use for the first heading, second heading, third heading, and so on. And we can also have define the metadata. So using the meta tag. So this is the introduction, beginning of the HTML. In the next class, we will start looking into some of the tags, and also we will create some code, HTML files, and we will run using the browser, and we will see how it looks. Okay, that's all for today's class. Any questions? Say yes or no. Any questions? Did you understand what is HTML tag? So we'll go into the details of the HTML tags in the next class. Okay. All right. So those who were not given the attendance, like if I missed, I don't want to go through the whole chat. You can put your roll number in the chat. I will give the attendance. 18. Okay, 18 already given. $24 248. 24 248. 24 I have given 8. Some of you, when you join, I remember I normally give the attendance. Rohan, when I called after your name, you joined. You joined late, so I gave your attendance that time. 48 is done. Okay. Those are the I have given attendance for all those people. See, right now I see only 22. Okay, attendance is like. Shall I take the attendance again? Earlier there were 44 people. Shall I take the attendance again? Yes or no, guys? Okay, please, I don't know what was the problems, if there is any network issues or anything. It's a learning. It is going to benefit you. Spend like you're spending only 3 hours in the morning, not more than that. Please do it with all your wholeheartedly. Learn something. If you have questions, okay. Attendance, more than your attendance, knowledge is important. You are in already final year, okay. Placements, okay, so many things are there. You have to at least be serious now, okay. Maybe you are in final year now. Get little serious and learn the things. And web technology, I have told you, it is going to help you. Many of you are going to spend money later on external things, and instead of doing that right now, you can spend a little more energy